What do you think is driving the declines and also maybe this, modest recovery today?
Sure. I mean, look, fundamentally, I think that this is a macro-driven sell-off. I mean, when we look under the hood here, I think that this recent pullback undervalues the progress, the traction, and the opportunity size of everything that's happening in crypto. Is that part of maybe the little bit of a late surge later in the trading session? Maybe. It's really a long-term kind of sector, not short-term here.
Okay, so let's talk about short term, though, because that's what investors are really concerned about, especially if they're thinking about pulling out now. Do you see these losses, this crash, this winter, if you will, extending for a significant period of time? Or, within a short term period, do you see more upside?
Look, we think about upside in terms of basically 5 to 10 years. So what's going to happen in the next year or two remains to be seen. I mean, plain and simple, let's zoom out here. Crypto is both disrupting and creating new opportunities in multiple trillion-dollar markets. I mean, let's talk about just finance, gaming, and social. That's just three. So that stuff's not going to go away. The traction is very real. We're seeing progress on all of those fronts. But the backdrop here is really the pace of innovation. So when you're thinking about from a forward-looking perspective, what's exciting about what's happening here? And it's really all about the pace of innovation. I think in the history of technology, we've never seen anything match this pace of what we're seeing in crypto today.
I asked MicroStrategy's Michael Saylor the very same question about how long he plans to hold his Bitcoin. Of course, MicroStrategy, the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin in the world. Does this signs of winter, the cold, give him any pause? Take a quick listen to what he had to say.
No, we're not sellers, right? We're only acquiring and holding Bitcoin, right? That's our strategy. We've been very clear. We actually put it in black and white in our 10K. You can read it in our SEC filings.
That's in response to a question that was basically like, would you ever sell? And the answer was basically never. I mean, is that the right strategy?
Look, kudos to Michael for his strategy. He's running a very different type of investment strategy from what we're running as a venture firm. Right? I mean, again, we're thinking about some of these fundamental backdrops, right? We have this permissionless open infrastructure that anyone can build on. We have this open source technology. So new founders coming into the space don't need to recreate the wheel. Anyone can take these protocol applications off the shelf, add something to it, and create something entirely new. And we're running all of these experiments in parallel. And that's what's driving this pace of innovation that gets us really excited as venture investors. So is there any one asset that we hold in our portfolio that I'd say we would never sell? Of course not. That's not in our business model. But for Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, they're running a different game, and that's okay.
So for those who aren't venture capitalists like yourself, but want to have some exposure to the market and don't know what to do right now, how are you looking at this crash? Is this similar to what happened in 2018? I mean, is it that dramatic? Is it something softer or different?
I don't think it's anywhere near the same situation of 2018. In 2018, we're coming off a backdrop of 2017's ICO phenomenon that had a lot of projects selling tokens up front for applications that were yet to be developed. Many of those never launched. Now, in contrast, what we're seeing here is live networks and live applications where you can review the data on chain on a real-time basis to see how they're performing. We can see how much fees they're generating on an hourly basis, on a minute-by-minute basis. And the numbers are pretty incredible. Several of these applications are generating well north of hundreds of millions of dollars a year annually in fees. So they're delivering real utility to their users. And that's very, very different than 2018. Now, the other thing I would add here is that the backdrop is very different. So in 2018, this was entirely a secular bull market, or a bear market, sorry, for crypto. Now, in contrast here, the secular story for crypto is all very, very bullish. We just have a negative macro backdrop.
After a big football weekend, got to ask you about the chatter about some of these major athletes accepting their paychecks in Bitcoin. Odell Beckham Jr., of course, here in San Francisco, Golden State Warriors, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala. Do you think this was the right play for them, pun intended, given that, they're losing money?
Look, I think that this kind of a strategy is really only suitable for those that can afford to have long-term commitment. And so fortunately, these kind of high profile names, they're doing this in that category. And I think that that's okay. But I don't think it's suitable for the vast majority of people that don't have the kind of extra income to take that sort of risk. Now, of course, we should keep in mind that presumably all of those athletes, I don't know exactly what their contracts look like, but presumably it's a fixed in USD term and then converted into crypto, in which case it's really just a way to average into the industry over time as a percentage of their paycheck. And that seems like a savvy play to me.